Hello everyone, my name is Yuri Kasdorp from Mouse, and we are here at the Temple of Speed. We're on Monza for week 2 of the GT Sprint Series. And this time we're in the Mercedes. Normally it's quite a heavy car, it's quite tricky to get around corners, but because of the acceleration here, which we need around the Temple of Speed, it usually is quite a good choice for this track. So let's see how we wrestle this car around the corners and make good use of that acceleration out of them. Alright, so here we are starting a lap in the big Merc. On a race field as usual. Tires still a bit cold, especially after stopping there. So the Merc is always good on accelerating, getting up to that top speed. So on a track like Monza, even with the new BOP, it should be pretty good. Starting the lap here. And for turn 1, we want to look at the 150 brake marker. So all the way in the left, 150. And focus on a good exit. And you have to be careful on the right side with the slowdown, but still use a lot of the curb because there's a lot of time there. And to brake early for the second chicane. And focus all on the exit. Careful for the off-track on the right side. Carry the speed through Lesma 1. Focus on a good exit for Lesma 2. Go to Ascari, you can brake a bit from the middle into Ascari. End up on the curb. It's quite tricky there on the exit to keep it flat without hitting the off-track on the left or the right side. And the last corner you want to go on the green a bit and brake in the middle. And then last corner, make sure to be on throttle early. Cut down a bit to finish the lap. And that's the lap around Monza. Alright, so here we are on the outside cam. Let's have a closer look at the lap that we just drove. So for turn 1, obviously just straight line. We want to look at the 150 marker on the left side and I use that as a brake point. I brake just before that usually. So just before the 150 marker. You can also use the bush on the left side here where it starts if you like that better, depending on your FOV. Here's 150. We brake from the left side. And one thing you can do here is you can start going to the inside a bit earlier. That allows you to brake later, but it has normally shit exit from the corner if you brake straight for the apex. But because there's not really an exit here, it's a very tight chicane. It can help you braking a bit later and actually gain a bit of time. So instead of turning in all the way at the end here, you start turning in a bit early like I'm doing here. And then try to get your car parked on the apex here. You have to be very, very careful. If the left tires here go over the white line, you don't get an off-track, you get a slowdown. Of course, very punishing. And then tap on the brake, get the car to the left side. You can run over the big anti-cut curb here on the left side. And then try to set up for a good exit. You want to make sure you don't clip the gravel here, that slows the car down. And then we go up to second chicane. And the second chicane, very counterintuitively, it's not about how late you brake for the second chicane. Even stronger, I think the later I brake usually, the slower I go through the chicane. So you really want to brake early. I use this ending of the guardrail here as a marker. And really, again, better brake a bit early here to have a nice line, good speed through the chicane, than to go too late. Because then you struggle and with the off-track on the second part of the corner, and you struggle with having a good exit from here. So you want to brake all the way close to the grass. And then again, the left-hander here, you want to cut a lot. You want to be close to the grass here. You can go a bit even over the white line, close to the grass, not an off track. And again, you want to set up so that you're at this position here, which is the most important point of the whole chicane. Not the braking, not your throttle. You want your car on this position here and not on the outside here or here, but with a bad angle already pointing this way. You want it here, and you want to turn to the right side. And one trick you can do to make sure that the car glides over the curb like it does here is you go on the throttle before, but when you hit the curb, you reduce the throttle. So right when you hit the curb, you reduce the throttle, and then when you land, you go back on the power again. And then you should have a nice exit. So let's have a closer look in the Delta app to see what those inputs exactly are. So we'll go to the Delta app, and then we look for our lap. It should be this one. Then we go to the second chicane, right here. And then you can see we brake, slowly off the brakes, slowly off the brakes. After the curb, go back a bit on throttle, but before we hit the curb again, I go down all the way to 30% over the curb. You don't have to fully lift, but going off the throttle and not keeping it on 80% will make sure that the car glides over the curb without having that second bounce up and down again. You see, we just build the speed up slowly even, but we don't keep the throttle. And then right as the car lands, if you feel it's planted, you're going to go back on full power again. So that's a nice thing you can use in the Delta app. You can see everywhere exactly how much you're braking or load it against a reference. So we go back to the replay and have a look in the replay for Lesmo 1, Lesmo 2. Lesmo 1, you want to make sure to open the corner up as much as you can. So brake from all the way to the left side. And Lesmo 1 is all about keeping the speed up and making sure the front end has grip. You do that by not braking too hard into the corner here. You can run all the way to the gravel on the exit here, so you don't have to look at where the curb is. It's the edge of the gravel. And Lesmo 2 is a bit the opposite. It's not about keeping the speed. It's about making sure you have a really good exit. So I brake again quite early, brake quite hard. I hit the curb on the inside here, but as you can see, my car already pointing towards the exit even before I hit the curb, which is really important to focus on that exit. You don't want to start turning in too early. You want to make sure that you focus on that exit, and my car's already pointing towards the exit here. And the moment I hit the curb here, you can see I'm building up the throttle so that I can be flat quite early. Then again, you look at the gravel on the left side, not at the white line. Because then we have the big back straight up to Ascari. And from Ascari, you can do two things. What I got used to is brake a bit from the middle so that we can brake onto the curb and go from the middle onto the curb to the left. You can also just use the white line and brake in the white line. It's a bit easier. But what I do is brake a bit from the middle so I end up on the curb here and extend the entry a tiny bit. But you have to brake a tiny bit earlier to do that. Then the line onto Sky, the first curb here is tricky as well. You either want to miss the second anti-cut completely, or you want to apex quite late like I'm doing here. We always want to miss the first one, but you can use the bottom curb, so the colored curb, to jump over the anti-cut, and that will look a bit like this. So you make sure that you hit it like this. You do quite a late apex, and you want to use going up the colored curb here to unload the left side of the car. And if you do that correctly, you can look from the left side. You can see the left side is either in the air or at least unloaded. So that when we hit this anti-cut, you can see I still hit it. But because that part of the car is unloaded, it doesn't affect the car much. And it just jumps over it. And in full speed, it looks a bit like this. So that's how we try to glide over that. But again, in some cars, it's a bit more tricky because the car doesn't jump as high. And if you hit the anti-cuts while the car's loaded, so if you either didn't hit the right line or the car just doesn't go up high enough, the second hit from the anti-cut will really upset the car and launch you into the air and lose a lot of time. And then we want to have a small lift in the middle of a scary here. If you have the perfect line and maybe you enter a bit slower, you can keep it flat. I like to have a small lift to transfer a bit of the weight to the front end and then back flat out. And then left-hander here, you want to make sure you don't cut too much. If you cut too much of the anti-cut here, you get the off-track. But again, here, if you just do it normally, you should glide right over the anti-cut. And then on the exit, just avoid the grass on the right side here. We don't have to look at the white line. The grass on the right side is the off-track. So quite a tricky corner combination there as well. And then for the last corner, again, I like to open it up as much as I can. So I like to start braking from the green bit here. There's the same amount of grip as the track has. And I brake right about in the middle of the green. You can also use the 100. But for my FOV, for my preference, I just use the middle of the green here. Start braking. And get to the inside and slowly build up the throttle. So you have traction. And then flat out to the finish line to end your lap and start the next one. Right, so there we go. All the tips and tricks you need to fly around Monza. Use all of the track and take the curbs without dying or losing a lot of time. Hope you learned something. Get a nice edge over the competition that hasn't watched the video, hasn't watched the nice guide. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel and I will see everyone next week.